Hi, this is Jeff Blowett, technical agronomist for Cooperative Farmers Elevator. And on this week's Field Friday segment, I thought we'd look at some of the things we talked about, maybe a revisit of something we talked about in July, but it was spraying fungicides on corn. We've been starting to see on satellite imagery some of the fields we've got some strips sprayed through the middle of a field, across multiple hybrids, across the rows, where we can kind of see once what differences we're seeing. Things are starting to show up. So I wanted to get out and look at a field and where we can find that line and can see once what we're seeing for differences. We've also got some footage I flew of the same field with a drone. So the first image here we're looking at is where the field layout is. We've got a hybrid change that's also showing up here, but we're looking at a portion of this one hybrid is without fungicide, and then part of it has fungicide, and that's what we'll be looking at in the field. You can also see from the imagery that difference showing up here. There's kind of a line, there's two lines, one of them's a hybrid line, but there's also a fungicide line. So I thought we'd go out and look at that in the field. Here we are in the field, and we are going to walk from the treated to the untreated down the row. Take note of the greenness towards the top of the canopy and how that changes. Still pretty good here. And we're going to start entering that transition. Notice the amount of brown, further diseased leaves here towards the top of the canopy. Again, keeping in mind that the top leaves above the ear are what feed that ear, and when they're diseased and browned up ahead of time, they are the first ones that start losing yield. Now we'll look at the lower part of the canopy and notice the amount of green leaves that are still on the bottom of that plant. And as we walk down the row, we're starting in the treated, and we'll notice that there is some green here. As we get towards the untreated side, we'll see that start to be less noticeable, and there's more speeded maturity, you might say, as we get into the untreated here now. And you can see there's not as much green left on the bottom. So seeing this difference actually in the field and seeing what's happened to these plants, I think we can see that there's definitely going to be a difference at the end of the corn's life here. Multiple things are going to happen. I think we're going to see a better standability, better stock integrity at the end, but also more yield. We have some fields we've got some silage data on, where we've got federal crop checking one side of the line versus the other, and the fungicide return on that field and this one as well that we just walked through, hand estimates tell us it's probably between 20 and 30 bushels. Even at $3 corn, that probably is going to be a really handsome investment. Now we're talking some corn on corn environments. Those we always kind of look at as a higher prevalence of yield response, but hopefully if you had some high responsive hybrids or some corn on corn acres, that you did some of the acres, because I think it's going to pay off rather well even with the commodity prices the way they are. What we're seeing out in these fields is starting to take over here at the end. A lot of fields you drive by, the tops of these fields, the tops of these plants are starting to turn brown fairly rapidly. Probably some late season anthracnose is taking those tops of the plant out. The leaves are starting to get anthracnose in them. Again, we talked about the top half of that plant, the ears above that, or the leaves above that ear, are what are going to continue to feed that through the end of grain fill, and if they're more intact and greener, that's obviously going to work out better for the kernels. But we've got some eye spot is what we would probably gain the most yield from. We gained a fair amount mid-season from that. We had enough cloudy, we had warm weather but not hot weather as far as over daytime highs, and that's kind of why we've got a lot more eye spot than we've had in previous years. We've had some, but it's been a few years where that's been a factor. Last couple years, we've seen a lot more rust and a lot more northern corn leaf blight, but eye spot seems to be the main disease early, and then of course here at the end, the anthracnose. So I think it looks like we're going to have some pretty good return for the fungicide that was applied to corn. Hopefully you had a chance to get some out, and it's something that we wanted to kind of revisit since we talked about it earlier. So with that, that's this week's Field Friday segment, and we'll see you next week.